My name is Mariam Ottimofiore. I am an author of 2 books on global living, The Guilty Can't Say Goodbye and This Messy Mobile Life. After living in 10 countries and 4 continents, I'm an expert at butchering every new language I learn. I'm perpetually lost in every new city that I call home, and I can never remember my new address or phone number or NIF number. I am the latest guest on Portugal, The Simple Life podcast. And I talked to Dylan about why I love Portugal, how it's inspired my creativity and inspired me to write a book set here in Portugal, which looks at what it's like to move to this country. So I hope you'll enjoy reading it.
Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of Portugal, The Simple Life. And I'm really happy to be joined here by Mariam Ottimofiore. I got it right?
You got it perfect.
We're not going to tell the listeners that we rehearsed it like 15 times before we started, but Mariam, thank you so much for being on the podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me, Dylan. I know my last name can be a bit of a mouthful, but well done. I think you got it right in just a couple of tries. So well done.
Thank you very much. We're recording this on the 11th of July, so summer is starting. It's always a scary thing for parents in Portugal when summer starts. What do we do with these kids? It's fun.
That's one way of putting it. Fun. Yeah. But it is fun. But yeah, we're in the thick of summer, and I'm glad we're able to still do this in the midst of everything happening. But...
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. Mariam, why don't you start off by telling us a bit about you?
Sure, I'd be happy to. My name is Mariam. I am a multilingual writer, a published author, a journalist, a conference speaker, a researcher, and an economist by profession. Okay. So that's a little bit about what I do. I have lived in 10 countries and 4 continents around the world. And my identity is not really confined to the passports that I hold, which are Pakistan and Italy, but rather all the different places that I have lived. And that really is where I feel I belong, a bit of everywhere and a bit of nowhere. I'm also a very happy mother of 3 children born in 3 different countries, more than 3,000 miles.
3?
Yes.
Okay, wow. Okay, we'll get into that.
One born in Singapore, one born in Dubai, and one born here in Lisbon in Portugal. Wow. So never stand behind me and my family at any embassy or any government office here, because we are the family that takes the longest. With birth certificates in Chinese and Arabic and Portuguese, you can imagine. But yes,
How do you apostle everything? It's always everything needs to be apostilled. Jeez.
There's a lot of fun to be had with this global life for sure. But yeah, we enjoy it. We take it in our stride. And I've been living here in Portugal since 2020. So this month actually marks my 5-year anniversary of living in Portugal, Dylan.
Congratulations. So good timing. Good timing, this conversation.
Yeah, very good timing. And I live in Cascais with my half German, half Italian husband and 3 children, and enjoy the beautiful sunny weather along with my passion for writing.
Amazing. Okay. We've got, my wife is Portuguese. Our kids speak both English and Portuguese. So they speak Portuguese with mom and English with dad. And the 2 oldest can speak a bit of French. But I'm imagining the languages in your house. Where are you guys at with languages? Like, what's the predominant language? Do the kids mix it up a little bit?
Yeah, well, first of all, it sounds like we have a lot in common with our multilingual households. And I think it's such an amazing way to raise children with multiple languages. And our household is quite similar to yours. The only complicated thing is that each parent has 2 languages, 2 native languages. And so for me, that would be Urdu, what we speak in Pakistan, and English.
Wow.
And
Okay.
for my husband, it's German and Italian. And so our household is a mix of German, Italian, Urdu, and English. And then
Wow.
because we keep moving all around the world, we keep adding languages. So we've added Danish. Our kids have learned Mandarin in Singapore. They learned Arabic in Urdu, in Dubai, sorry, in
Wow.
school. And in Ghana, they were learning French and Twi, the local language. And of course, now here we are in Portugal, so they're learning Portuguese in school. So
How's
the
that going?
Oh, it's going very well for the kids.
Yeah.
They're very quick to adapt and to learn. And I think for them, it's the norm that their community language changes,
Yeah.
but their home languages remain the same. So that's where we try to keep that part going. Whether we're living in Paris or we're living in Dubai, we speak our four languages at home, and then we make sure that the kids learn the community language through school and clubs and activities and interaction
Amazing.
with neighbors, etc. So.
Incredible. How did Portugal start for you?
It's interesting. I didn't choose Portugal. I always say Portugal chose me and Portugal chose us because we never made the, explicit intention to move here. We are sort of economic migrants. We move wherever the job takes us, wherever the
Of
work
course.
takes. And that's how we ended up moving to Portugal in 2020. What happened was that before this, we were living in West Africa in a beautiful corner, beautiful, you might be familiar with it, in Ghana. We were based in
Yeah.
Accra, Ghana. And
Okay.
Ghana is a gorgeous country to be in. We were having an incredible experience, just learning all about West African culture and Ghanaian culture. And sadly, our time there got cut short because of the pandemic. And that's
Okay.
how my husband's company and his employer ended up moving us and relocating us to Portugal. But it was purely accidental, Dylan, because it just ended up being Portugal. It could have easily been Panama. I don't think they have
Okay.
much in common aside from the fact that they start with a P. But we never know where we are going next. Sometimes we get a bit of a say in it, sometimes we don't. So it was going to be either Portugal or Panama. It just happened to be that the job in Portugal worked out. And so we arrived here in July 2020 in the middle of the pandemic.
In middle of COVID, yeah.
And I was also pregnant with our third child, which was
Oh my
another high
goodness.
risk pregnancy. And it was a very stressful beginning because unfortunately a lot of things went wrong. I went into preterm labor on day 4 of arriving in Lisbon.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
I was doing the first 3 days, we did all the things that you do when you're new in Portugal, like opening up a bank account and getting your NIF number and all the things that, you do when you move here. But then on day 4, I was being rushed out of Millennium Bank in an ambulance to the
Oh my,
nearest hospital. So that
oh
was a
my
very
goodness.
stressful start to life in Portugal.
Wow. Okay, yeah, that's a hell of a start. I mean, obviously the passports helped from a practical point of view, you with the Italian and your husband with the
Yes.
German. So that was pretty easy, I suppose, in
Yes.
terms of being able to be here. So that was at least they didn't have that stress of trying to
Yeah,
get
for
visas
sure.
and things like that.
For
Which
sure.
hospital did you have to go to?
Well, I had chosen a private hospital. I had chosen
Sure.
Hospital Maluche in Lisbon.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good hospital.
Over Zoom without having visited it. But I had chosen the hospital and I'd chosen a gynecologist, an OBGYN. And unfortunately, what happened was that I was only 26 weeks pregnant when my water broke, which
Wow.
is, of course,
That's
way too early.
way.
And in Portugal, there's this thing that if you go into labor before 32 weeks, no private hospital can actually look after you. You must be admitted into a public hospital because the public hospitals, ironically, are actually they're better funded and they've got all the latest, research and equipment and medical know-how. So I didn't know this. I was very stressed out and worried, as you can imagine, but I actually was put in the best possible place, the best hospital, which was a public hospital in Lisbon. It's called, well, we call it MAC for short, but it stands for Maternidade Dr. Alfreda da Costa. And from the outside, it looks like a crumbling cathedral, but from
Yeah.
the inside, it's rather high tech. And I found out that it has the best possible chances of helping a premature newborn survive, which is
Mm,
what I was headed towards. And
yeah.
so it had a level NICU facility, which is what we ended up needing. And that really, it honestly, it was a matter of life and death for both me and our baby.
Wow.
But I'm happy and super grateful to share that we both made it through.
Made it through.
And
Yeah.
it wasn't perfect, but we are both here to
Yeah.
share our experience. And I think that's what counts in the end, that, we received the help, the medical care that we needed, literally right off the bat. Like I said, I'd been in Portugal for 4 days. I spoke maybe 3 words of Portuguese
Yeah.
back then. And it was a very stressful situation, even for someone like me who's used to moving around, used to
Yeah.
giving birth in different countries, used to having to advocate for myself in a new culture, in a new
Yeah.
medical system. But even then, it was really stressful because I think COVID added that extra layer of complexity. So, like, nobody was
Of
allowed
course.
to
Yeah.
come in and see me. I was literally all
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
My
Yeah. Yeah.
husband and
Yeah.
kids couldn't come in.
Yeah.
Nobody was vaccinated back then, right? In Portugal in July 2020.
Not yet.
So,
No.
we were all, being very cautious. And so,
Wow.
it was a very stressful beginning, but it's been uphill since.
Yeah, well, it has to be. You started low and it went up. Yeah, I mean, I've got quite a quite a serious medical condition, and so just before 2019, I was in Santa Maria, which is the other big hospital in Lisbon. I was there for 5 months,
Wow.
and it was also life and death. And at that time, I've been here 16 years, so I can speak the language quite fluently, but I was a little bit out of it mentally, so I needed to be able to communicate in English. That was never an issue, which was amazing, with the doctors there. And it's the same thing when you go into the building. You're looking at this huge building, and you're like, okay, what is this place? It just looks like an old, like, apartment block or something. And then you go
Yeah.
inside, and the care is immaculate, and they look after you, and yeah, it's incredible. I mean, because you've lived in various places, where if the same thing had happened, it might not have gone
Exactly.
as well.
Exactly. I think this is what I kept reminding myself, Dylan, that even though things were going wrong, but at least I was in the right place when things did go wrong,
Yeah,
and I could get the help, and my baby could get the help that he
yeah,
needed, and I could get the help that I needed, and the medical attention that we both needed, because that was the only reason we had been asked to leave Ghana, not just because it was a pandemic, but also a high risk pregnancy. And as much as we loved
yeah,
Ghana, as much as we loved our African life, unfortunately, the medical infrastructure there wasn't as well developed,
yeah.
and there was no NICU. And in the
Mm,
end, imagine that's exactly what we needed. Our son Miro, who was born here, so I kept him in. So I was hospitalized, and I stayed hospitalized and on complete bed rest for another 5 weeks.
yeah,
And so made it from 26 weeks to 30 weeks. And then the
incredible.
doctor said, now, they said, you've done a great job, but now we've reached a point where your baby's going to be safer outside than inside of you.
Yeah,
And so we're going to take him out, because there were some warning signs, and they made a judgment call. And you never know, right? Like I said, I just have to put my full trust and faith in a team of doctors who, were doing the
yeah. Who
best
you'd never met as well. It's
but
it's
never
incredible.
met.
Wow.
And that's all you can do. You could only trust and pray for the best. And one of the doctors said to me that as long as there's a heartbeat, there's still hope. There's always hope. And so, just
Wow.
on that gut feeling, we went through, and our son was born at 30 weeks, really tiny. He weighed less than a kilo, but, he was whisked off immediately to the NICU where he was stabilized, and he couldn't breathe on his own or anything. So it's a
Yeah,
very
yeah.
stressful thing to go through, no matter where you are, but especially when you've just moved to a new
Just
country.
arrived. My goodness me. Yeah,
It was a lot to take in. And of course, I could only go into the NICU every day. Me and my husband would take a COVID test just to be allowed inside the NICU. We couldn't be there even at the same time. Only one of us
mm,
could. It was really a stressful beginning, but all's well that ends well. And after spending
yeah,
7 weeks in the NICU, our son was discharged. And, he came home. And if you see him, Dylan, today, if you run into us on the
You wouldn't
street,
know.
guys, and you see him throwing a tantrum because he wants another ice cream by, the promenade. And you would never guess what a rough start he had in life.
Amazing.
But the nurses warned me. They told me this one's going to be just fine because he would throw off his socks in the NICU incubators and they'd be like, oh, I wouldn't worry about him. So I always remember their words.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, it resonates because when I was in for such a long time, part of that 5 months I was in a coma, and they obviously, I mean, they got a connection to people, and they still said to my wife and my family, they're like, he's going to be okay. He's like, there's something that we can see here, and it's going to be fine. But that's an incredible start to life in Portugal. Had you researched these things beforehand, before coming across? Had you looked into? I know you said schools and where you wanted to be, but had you looked at medical
Yes.
and things like that?
Yes. So we do like almost CIA level research before we move to a
Well,
new.
you're used to it, right? You've
We're
been in
used
so
to
many
it.
places. You've got to look into these things. Yeah,
Yes, and so we've developed quite a good system of quite a good process of doing this for each place that we move to. And like I mentioned, Portugal is my 10th country to move to. So by now I have it down to a science where I know exactly what I need to do. I know exactly I'm going to research, hospitals, doctors, schools, neighborhoods, everything. And so the other reason we are so thorough is that we don't have a lot of room for getting it wrong. When
mm,
you're moved to a country with an employer, you can't just say, "Oh, sorry, I don't like this school for my kids. I'm going to change them midway." No, you can't quite do that, right?
yeah,
So each decision has to be, you sort of have to get it right in the first go. The company will only like help you and support you to relocate to one home, not to three different apartments or not to three different homes. So your home has to be spot on. The school has to be, really carefully researched and, selected. And the same was for the hospital. And I'm sure that the hospital I chose was a really really good one, and it was a private one, and I'd chosen it because I was just moving to Portugal and I knew I needed a bit more support with the high risk pregnancy, but of course that part was then beyond my control, right? I couldn't be
yeah,
looked after there, and so I just made my peace with it that
yeah,
people are making sure I am getting the best care that I can possibly receive at this point. So you have to let go of it. And I think that's a good lesson for so many of us that you
yeah,
can't control every part of your move, right? Things will happen and you have to choose where you, direct your energy, right? Not everything's
yeah,
going to be smooth. Not everything is going to be perfect, but you do the best that you can and then trust in the process and the people around you.
yeah, yeah. Amazing. Um, how have the kids found Portugal? What have they? Obviously they've lived in other places. What are some of the things that they've said about Portugal uh, that they've enjoyed about being here?
They love it. They don't want to move.
Okay.
We are all very happy here. Like I said, rough beginning, but it's definitely been uphill since then. And the kids really enjoy it here. They've made good friends. They like the country. They like how welcoming everyone is. Even in the middle of the pandemic, people were welcoming to us.
Mm,
And even though some people might have looked at me like I was crazy, but when I did share my story, I found I received a lot of empathy from the Portuguese, specifically inside the hospital, So I think that the empathy and the welcoming nature really has helped us to sort of adapt and make it our home. And it started feeling like our home very quickly.
yeah.
And the kids, they really like it here. Of course, my youngest is totally a Portuguese child. So he's, very, probably the most well integrated, eating soup every day and, all of that. He turns 5 in a few weeks. And so I think the kids really, they're very happy here. I think what they also like is that it's a very multicultural place.
Mm,
So my kids are used to, being with other children from all around the world.
yeah.
And I think that for them, that aspect is still very much the case in Portugal. People are multicultural. They speak more than one language. Many of them attend school in a different language as well, or speak a different language at home. And so I think that has really helped them to belong. And I think Portugal's multicultural and multi-ethnic mix, thanks to its history and, its past, it means that, my kids who are this blend of East meets West, they feel very much at home here. They feel like they belong
Yeah.
because there isn't only one way to belong in Portugal. And I will say that this experience, it's different than when we lived in Denmark, for instance, or when we lived in Germany, because those societies are a bit more homogenous, as most of Western Europe is. So I feel that that's something that Portugal is it makes it quite unique that,
Yeah. Yeah.
you got this blend of different people here and different cultures and cuisines as well. I mean, I love that I can order an Angolan shrimp curry through Uber Eats at 9 p.m. on a Friday night. And I love that I can the next day walk through Sintra and see the Moorish, architecture and appreciate that part of Portugal's past. And then while living in Southern Europe, where the tomatoes taste amazing and the olive oil is so simple yet so good. So I feel like it's such a mix of these, different cultural influences as a result of its history and its past. And that's what makes it really unique for us to live here because it's sort of the best of all the different worlds.
Yeah, because I know you've written about third culture kids, and I think your kids will they take that to another level. I don't think they qualify as third culture. It might be a couple of different, more than that. And I and one of the things that I think I appreciate about, well, that I do appreciate about Portugal is there is this openness, and when I remember listening to a debate a few months back before the elections, and the guy from, I'm not going to say his name, but the guy from the far right party and saying Portugal for the Portuguese, and da, da, da. And the rhetoric and what many people responded was, but in Portugal we are already a mix of things, we already have all these different cultural influences, and we can't turn our back on those things. And that was going to be one of my questions, is about how, for a multicultural family, how easy has it been to fit in, because of that openness, which is quite unique, I think, for Europe, specifically for the world. You look at a couple of your other Southern European countries, and they don't have that openness. You got the Italian passport, but the Italians are Italian. And it's
Absolutely.
it's hectic. Like,
Italy, Spain, France, they're all very different from Portugal. And I
yeah,
think that it's an important point to make that this multicultural mix has made a family like mine feel very much at home, very welcome. We don't feel like we stand out or in any bad way. We like to stand out, but we feel very accepted and welcomed here. And part of the fabric, I feel like this is really what Portugal is about. It is about welcoming people from different corners of the world. And it has such a rich history. It has such a rich past. And I think that really makes it so unique to live here. The other really unique thing that you touched upon that I want to just mention explicitly is that in Portugal, nobody language shames you, right?
yeah, that's a huge
Which is a
thing. Yeah,
huge thing. When I lived in Germany, unless I spoke perfect German, somebody or the other was constantly correcting me, correcting my pronunciation, or correcting which use of word I would use with my use of word, and it can be, they don't necessarily mean it in a bad way, but it can really affect you when you're trying to learn a new language, right? And learning a new language is hard, right? No matter what age you are or when you do it, it's a hard process. I'm one of those rare people who enjoy the challenge of learning a new language. So I
yeah,
take a lot of joy in this process. But still, if someone were to language shame me, it affects you.
Yeah.
And it affected me in Germany. It affected me in Denmark. But in Portugal, I find it so different
Yeah.
because here, no matter how you butcher the language, a Portuguese person will never language shame you. They'll always appreciate you for the effort of speaking
100%.
their language. And
100%.
they'll help you, and you won't walk away from the interaction feeling inadequate or
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah.
embarrassed or
Yeah.
ashamed. You'll feel like, okay, I'm making an
Th-
effort and it's
yeah.
being
Yeah.
recognized. It's being
They're
validated.
actually, yeah, they're actually hesitant to correct you because they don't want to offend you. Like I found when I first started speaking Portuguese, people wouldn't correct me, and I know I'm butchering it, and if only when I would ask, they would
Mm.
say, "Yeah, pois, you said that one a bit, you said that a bit wrong. This is how you say it," but it's done with so much love and acceptance. And I've been language shamed in France many times. I've been language shamed in Spain, and
Mhm.
it's not nice. It's not nice, And okay, these times I'm there on holiday to live, it must be worse. But yeah, that's a huge one. You mentioned something very interesting. You used a word, empathy, and often people say, the Portuguese are very kind. There's a similar word, sympathy. It's not the same as empathy. Um, but it's such a great way to describe the Portuguese that they're empathetic and
Yeah.
like just unpack that. Why do you think they're like that? What does that look like for you in your experience?
Mhm. So I would unpack that in two ways. I would say they're culturally empathetic. They genuinely want to know which cultures you're coming from and what do you
They're
cook at
curious as well.
home.
Yeah, yeah.
Curious, like they'll ask me, do you make Pakistani food at home or do you make Italian food at home? Or, the answer is yes to both. We don't make German food. That's a that's no. But
Sausages.
there isn't much there. I
Yeah.
don't want to offend any German, including my husband, who might be listening to this podcast. But German desserts, yes, for sure. But they're culturally curious, so that's one part
Mm,
of their empathy, and then the other part is the linguistic empathy, where they don't make fun of you if you speak Portuguese with an accent, or you speak Portuguese clearly it's not your first language, or you're not a native speaker. And I find these two things so valuable to teach to my own third culture kids, right? Linguistic empathy. Just because somebody sounds different from you doesn't mean you get to make fun of them or that they're any less than. So it's a
yeah.
great message that Portugal, I feel, gets it right,
Mm,
that empathy is practiced in different ways. And Portugal, I feel our experience has been that it allows us to enjoy this kind of empathy in many different ways, whether it's
mm,
linguistic or it's cultural.
yeah.
And every time we talk about our multicultural household here in Portugal, we only are welcomed with, oh my God, that's amazing and that's wonderful. And just like you, what languages do you speak at home? And people are curious to learn more. They want to be invited to your summer barbecue because they know it's going to be a great mix of
Yeah.
cultures and cuisines. And I find
Yeah.
that refreshing. And especially if I compare it with other European countries that I have lived in, whether it's Germany or Denmark or even the UK, I think that is really something special about living
Yeah.
here.
Between my job as a realtor at Portugal Realty and hosting this podcast, life is pretty busy. But lately, I've been receiving so many messages from people that want to know more about buying property here on Portugal's Silver Coast that I've got to do something about it. So, starting now, for subscribers only, I'm offering up a 30-minute session per day. That's 5 30-minute sessions for a one-on-one meeting to talk about buying property here on Portugal's beautiful Silver Coast. This is for subscribers only. So please subscribe to book your session and get in touch with us through the links below via WhatsApp or email to book your session today. I'll be happy to speak to you. It's for subscribers only and it's completely free. There's another thing I want to talk about with barbecues and dinners and things with Portugal. We'll get there. But there was another thing that you said, and I wanted just to unpack that a little bit more, which I'm very curious about. You said there's not only one way to belong in Portugal. So, what do you mean? What do you mean by that?
So I find that each time I move to a new country, Dylan, I'm a different version of myself, right? I don't know if you feel this, but maybe South African you is different from Portuguese you.
Very.
right? You are a different person depending on the context and the place and the environment that you're in. So the Portuguese version of me is very different from the Ghanaian version of me or the Singaporean version of me. But I feel that Portugal allows me to be exactly who I am. And the thing is this,
Mm,
I have always been an outsider, right? I've always been an outsider because I'm always an outsider each time I move to a new country and I have to learn the ropes. I have to understand the culture. I have to learn the language. I have to know what are the do's and the don'ts and the cultural taboos and what's accepted and what's not. And so I always start off each adventure as an outsider.
mm,
But sometimes I am accepted as an insider, and partially, or to some degree or to some extent. And I think Portugal not only has allowed me to appreciate my outsider identity, because what Portugal does is that it says, if you're an outsider, it doesn't matter. We'll welcome you. We want to learn from you, and
mm,
we want to look at our own country, which is a very old country, through your fresh new pair of eyes and through your fresh perspective. So Portugal allows each person who comes here to reinvent it, to reimagine it, to look at it with fresh eyes. And I
mm,
think that's what gives anybody a sense of belonging, that you're part of, this whole place, and your experience is shaping this place as well. So I find that belonging in Portugal can be in so many different ways.
mm. Interesting. Yeah.
Ultimately, that's what we all want. We all want that sense of belonging. And if you read my writing, that's also what my characters are searching for. I have three
Mm,
women who moved to Portugal, and they're all looking for that sense of belonging. They
mm,
are all looking for that fresh start. And, that is what I wanted to show, that this is a place where it is possible. It is possible for you to feel like you belong. And you can still retain maybe a bit of your outsider persona, but you will definitely gain a bit of an insider persona.
mm.
And your podcast is called, The Simple Life and Insider's Perspective. And look at how fabulous that is, because you're someone who's moved here and now you've got this insider perspective and you're interviewing different people and asking them to share their insider perspective. And so what we're building cumulatively as a community, I think that's what's incredible, that we all get that sense of
Yeah.
belonging, and
Yeah.
Portugal is allowing us to do that.
Yeah. I was actually speaking to I'm trying to think who it was. It was there's been a few interviews, but one of the where we wouldn't be able to do this and be given the space to do this and to belong if it wasn't for the Portuguese people, which they it's because of their welcoming nature, it's because of their curiosity, their empathy that we get given the space to do this, which is such a beautiful thing and so rare in the world today, where they've got it's interesting that you lived in Ghana. I'm originally from South Africa, and in South Africa, you know, after segregation and when we got to be the new South Africa, which is a beautiful thing, we were exposed more to the African cultures and they have real community. Like they help each other, they're there for each other. And the European country that comes the closest to African community for me has been Portugal. Like just how your neighbors are to you, and how I mean, when I was sick that time that I was telling you, my neighbors would take my kids to school, um, and it's real community. And I have to kick back on one thing you said, which is that nobody makes fun of you because of your pronunciation. Give it a few years, because I've got a colleague and a friend, Louise, who's probably listening to this, and he always says I sound Ukrainian when I speak Portuguese, which he finds odd because I'm not Ukrainian. I'm from South Africa, but so just give that one time. Um, but yeah, it's just an incredible thing that we're allowed to be given that space to
Yeah.
live and to be ourselves, and even to bring a bit of our other culture into people,
Mhm.
like you said, that curiosity of like, what do you eat and how do you prepare this? And
Yeah.
it's just such a wonderful wonderful thing, which is in today's world, when people are not staying in one place, but still need community, It's a rare thing that you can move from almost anywhere and you can find a community here in Portugal. It's quite rare.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about your books and your writing.
Yeah, sure. So I have published two books. I've co-authored a bunch of others, but I won't go into that. I have published two books, and they're both on global living. Since
Mm,
this is this is my life, right? The first one is called This Messy Mobile Life, and it's about what happens to us when we move ourselves out of the comfort of the familiar and exchange a life in the unfamiliar.
mm,
Who do we become? Right? Who do we become? Usually, we're so busy living our life in a new country that we forget to ask ourselves. We forget to really appreciate how we've changed or what kind of changes there have been. And what do we find ourselves insisting upon? And what does this mean for my identity and for my children's identity and for my family identity? And so, all these questions led me to writing that first book, This Messy Mobile Life, which is about the mess of living abroad and having this fusion of cultures and languages and moving from one place to the other. And what are we building? What kind of design are we creating for ourselves? And what does that look like? And
mm.
so that book is a nonfiction book. It's part memoir, part guidebook for other international families who are also interested to move abroad. And like I say, it doesn't matter if you move abroad once or you continue to move abroad from maybe to two or three different countries. The process is always the same. And so the learnings are applicable to everybody. And so that book is about exploring who you're becoming as a result of your decision to move
Mm,
abroad. And I've got lots
yeah.
of, helpful things and research that I share in that.
Mm,
And then, of course, my second book is a fiction novel, and it's set here in Portugal. It's
okay.
set in Cascais and in Lisbon. And it's about the three women who moved to Portugal. And these are three very different women, Dylan. There's one South Asian, one North American, and one West African.
Mm,
And they all moved to Portugal, to Southern Europe. And I wanted to show how different their lenses of looking at Portugal. And I
mm,
wanted to show what is it like to move to Portugal when you are from all these different cultures and places. Because I think there isn't only one experience of moving to Portugal, right?
yeah.
And so it's that multiplicity of experience and that diversity of who the women are themselves, where they're from and where they've lived, and then moving to Portugal in search of a fresh start. But the problem is that these women have all these deep, dark, guilty secrets from the past that they're trying to hide that prevents them from the fresh start that they're trying to create in Portugal. So it's that typical conflict between your past and your present. A lot of people think that just because you get on an airplane and move to a new country, that you're going to be a different person overnight.
Yeah.
But you and I know that's not how it works,
Mm,
right? Our past has shaped us and influenced us, and it's made us who we are. So moving abroad isn't a way to escape your past, but rather what I show in this novel set in Portugal is that you need to integrate your past. Your past has to be a part of who you're becoming in the future. And ultimately, the question that these three women face is, can moving to Portugal give them the courage to truly embrace their authentic self and
mm,
be who they really want to be? So it's about
interesting.
how a leap of faith can actually help you to be the person you want to be.
Amazing. Do you have something you want to read from that?
Yes, sure. I would be happy to.
Please. Yeah. Please.
Um,
Thank you.
let me just,
So what's the title? It's the
oh, I'm sorry, hold on.
That's okay.
Um,
It's,
See, it's called The Guilty Can't Say Goodbye with
mm,
Azulejos on the cover.
yeah.
I wanted to say this is something I love about Portugal, that it does storytelling through a visual means, such as an azulejo. So,
Yeah.
that is why it's on the cover, but also because my characters are kind of broken. It's a broken tile on the cover.
Mm,
because my characters are broken and they're trying to figure out who they are, and they land in
It's deep.
Portugal,
It's
and
deep.
it's
The
that
guilty
journey.
can't say goodbye. That's yeah, makes perfect sense.
So that is the cover. That's the name of the book. And I'll read out a short excerpt. So my
Sure.
characters are doing something that we all do when we move to Portugal. Hopefully, they take a Portuguese class, a language class to learn Portuguese. And their class is such that after they finish learning Portuguese, their Portuguese teacher tells them a little bit about the history of Portugal as well. So it's not just language learning, but also learning about the society and the country and the culture. And that is sort of where we are midway into this section. My main character is called Fatma. She is Pakistani who's moved to Portugal from Dubai. And the other character, the second character is called Kate, who's American, and she's moved to Portugal from Singapore. And my third character is Abena, who's Ghanaian, and she has moved to Portugal from the UK with her British Ghanaian husband. So here they are in their Portuguese class. So, said Fatma, with such a history of travel and exploration, how do modern Portuguese reconcile their history? I mean, are they proud of who they used to be? Ines shifted in her seat. Ines is the Portuguese teacher that they have. Well, this is a tricky question to answer. And the truth is, it's hard to generalize. But I think one thing is for sure. You will notice that Portugal's history as the first global empire has shaped its language today. Words like saudade are born out of this melancholic yearning for that which can never be again. The music of saudade is called fado. Have you heard of saudade? It's difficult to translate into English. It means something like a bittersweet longing or yearning for people and places, loved and lost. It's happiness tinged with sadness. Happiness because you experienced it, but then sadness because you can never go back in time. I get that, said Fatma. Saudade resonates deeply with me. It's similar to a word in Welsh, hiraeth, which also means a longing for that which can never be. I find it
Hmm.
so beautiful to have a word to explain such a complicated feeling. Kate piped in. I think anybody who's ever moved abroad can relate to saudade, right? Abena was looking wistful. I can't wait to share saudade with my husband Ben. It pretty much captures how I've been feeling in the UK and now in Portugal. It's so much more intense than homesickness. It's about leaving a home that ceases to know your name, that somehow continues on in your absence while you struggle to move on. It's in its absence. It almost feels like a case of unrequited love,
Hmm.
but with a place instead of a person.
Hmm.
That's a good way to put it, said Ines. I just skip a little bit forward. Um, Fatma notices Kate looking teary-eyed and asks, Kate, are you okay? Yeah, I don't know. I think something about Saudade definitely had me feeling sad, as if I've lost so much and I feel I can never get it back, you know? Fatma wondered exactly what Kate was feeling Saudade for, but she understood one thing. One of the hardest times to go through in life is when you've just moved from one country to another, but you're still transitioning from one version of yourself to another.
Hmm.
The latter always takes longer because it requires complete honesty in reassessing not just who you were, but who you have become.
Hmm. Wow, really nice.
That's a little bit from one of their Portuguese lessons. So it's
That was a
hopefully
deep. That was a
relatable to
deep. That was
anyone.
an emotional lesson, a Portuguese
Absolutely.
lesson. Jeez. But I mean, it's a conversation that you can imagine happening right now. Even to the reply and the response of the Portuguese teacher is so Portuguese. So
Yeah.
you've captured that so beautifully. There's something you said which is really interesting that when we move, um, and if we're moving to forget our past, it doesn't work. And there are lots of stories about people that have moved to Portugal and left and it didn't work out and they've gone back to wherever they came from. The thing that I think is so important is, and you kind of alluded to this, is reconciling who you were and the past, and knowing that this is a new start and that it's going to be different. Because I think so many people, look, I mean, we're living in a world where people are running away from so many things. It's a scary time to be alive, actually. And we see people running away from the US because of the man that I will not name. We see people running away from the UK because the crime is getting insane. We see people running away because of wars, and
Mm,
I think people come to Portugal and they think that Portugal is going to substitute
mm,
happier times that they
yeah.
had wherever they're from, and that's not what it's going to do. And it's going to be different, and it's going to be something. It's going to be an adventure. I did an interview with some American clients of mine, and the way that they spoke about it was they knew they were going to be coming to a different place. Like there
Mm,
was no, it's not like they were coming to an American version, America version 2.
yeah.
And that's so important, I think, for people to know that when they're moving here, they're not going to replace happier times. It's going to be different. And that's, I mean, in your work, eh, what is your take on that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that we think we get a fresh slate, right? In a way we do, but in a
In
way
some ways, yeah,
in
yeah,
some ways we do. There is this thrill in anonymity. We can be whoever we want to be. We're creating a fresh life from, from the start in a new country, right? So each time I move abroad or each time anybody moves abroad, I think we do enjoy that thrill in anonymity. We can be who we want to be. But then the question I find myself, or a question I find asking myself, Dylan, is as a writer, what parts of ourself do we show to people in this new
yeah,
country? And what layers of our identity do we keep hidden, right? Do
yeah,
we feel comfortable in sharing? And I think that is really the central part or the central conflict that we do get a fresh start, but we don't change magically overnight. So whatever has shaped us and influenced us in our to reconcile that moving to a new country can give us if we are
yeah,
brave enough to grab it, right? It's
yeah.
to understand ourselves. The adventure is actually happening inside ourselves, right? Sure, you've changed your scenery outside, but the real adventure is how you're changing inside.
Yeah, and I think another layer to that is if you're moving to move, if you've made that decision, like, okay, I'm going to give this a real go, you've got to reconcile the past stuff because once you start to integrate, once you start to make friendships and relationships and marry a local person, everything that you've tried to kind of sweep under the rug is going to come out again. And I think it's so important to. We had I think in the first year of doing the podcast, I had a psychologist, and she
Mm,
spoke about so many of us move with 2 feet, one in each boat, and eventually the boats start to part, and you've got to pick a side or you're in the water. And it was such an interesting way of looking at it because I think if you haven't made that decision, like, okay, I've just got to make this work, knowing that it's different and I haven't reconciled things, once you start to get into meaningful interactions, meaningful relationships with people, the stuff resurfaces.
ab-
And
Absolutely.
yeah,
This
so
is
that's yeah, it's
And that's what you see my characters struggling with because they haven't reconciled with their past, right?
they're yeah, yeah, they got the
And then
dark
they're,
secrets.
and yeah, and that's why they can't seem to move on. They can't seem to really build the life that they want to build for themselves and their children and their family.
Yeah,
And so this is a really important point to highlight for anybody moving, especially here to Portugal, that you have to reconcile with your past because, we have a saying in the expat literature world that in order to arrive well, you must leave well, right? In order
yeah,
to set yourself up for success in a new country, you've got to make sure you've done all the hard work of reconciling your experience in your previous country, whatever that
yeah,
may,
100%. Yeah,
right? That's what sets you up for success. So in order to arrive well, you've got to leave well. So we say this all the time when we do, corporate relocations for families and assignees and send them to a new
yeah,
country.
And it applies to so many things. It applies to it applies to practical things, having your finances in order, all of that stuff. But it applies also from a relationship perspective and emotional perspective. So, yeah, that's super. Yeah, it's fascinating. We're not going to talk about what the deep dark secrets of the ladies were because that would be a spoiler, and people need to buy the book, and we'll get onto that a bit later. I mean, why do you think Portuguese people should be proud of their country?
Hmm, it's a good question. Um, I think that they should be proud of how welcoming they are. I think we covered that a little bit, but I think that they should be proud of how they make people feel that they are welcome here and that they belong. This is a big thing because, like I said, belonging is that elusive, feeling that you don't get in every place you move to. Um, I think like perhaps my best experience, if I can share a personal story about how the Portuguese are, and I'll take you back to being in that hospital,
Mm.
26 weeks pregnant, alone, without my husband, without my two older kids, in a life-threatening, situation. And I remember the doctor came to me one day and said, each day that you keep this baby in is a victory. And as he was saying
Mm.
these words to me, Dylan, one of the nurses who was there, she overheard it. And she said, yes, absolutely. Each day is a victory. And what she started doing, Dylan, was that every day, every night when the day was over, rather, at around 11:30 p.m., she would come to my hospital room. I was in a big room sharing with a lot of different other women. She'd come to my bed and she'd bring me a pastel de nata around 11:30 and
Oh,
say, we're celebrating it because you made it through another day and you kept this
beautiful.
baby in. And it was such a simple gesture, right? She didn't have to do that for me. But for me, that is what the Portuguese should be, proud of, that it's these kind of simple gestures of welcoming someone
Mm.
or uplifting somebody who feels so
Yeah,
low
yeah,
at their
amazing.
lowest moment. And it's a simple thing. And so she did this for about 35 days. Every day she'd bring me a
Oh,
pastel de
wow.
nata until I gave birth. And for me, it was, of course, the medical care that helped me get through, but it was also this Portuguese nurse's, simple gesture of kindness. So I think that's what really
Yeah,
made.
you're going to remember that every time you eat a pastel nata. That's amazing. That's amazing. Um, Miriam, what's one thing that you would like people to remember and to take away from our conversation?
I think what I'd like people to remember is the fact that home is not a place that you leave behind. It's a story that comes with you on your journey. And I think we've talked about this, how just because you move doesn't mean that you have lost a home. Home is something you carry inside of you. And I actually
Mm.
think home is a story and it's your story. And how do you tell that story? That is up to each of us. So I always say that as a result of living in different countries, this is perhaps the most important thing that you're not leaving behind a place. You're actually stitching together a story and it's your story. And so keep that in mind as you go through your life in a new country. If you're moving to Portugal, keep that in mind. This is your story and how it
Mm.
ends is up to you. How it shapes up, it's up to you. What climax there is, that's up to you, right? Whatever learnings there are, that's up to you. So home is not a place you leave behind. It's a story that comes with you and it's your job to tell that story. So don't forget that.
Amazing. We need to give Anna Mulakauer a shout out. She connected us.
Yes.
So thank you, Anna, so much if you're listening. But Miriam, how can people find you, follow you, get hold of your book, all of the above?
Oh, sure. They can find me online. I have an author website, which is my name, mariamnavedottimofiore.com. Perhaps we can put that in writing, make it easier for
Yeah,
people absolutely fine. And also, of course, I'm active on social media, whether it's Instagram or it's Facebook. You can find me just through my name. If you type in my name, you should be able to find me. There aren't many women on Instagram with an with an Arabic first name, an Urdu middle name, and an Italian last name.
For sure. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there's just me. You'll be able to find me. And my books
Nice.
are available online as well as in bookstores. Maybe the easiest is if you go to Amazon Spain. If you're looking to get a copy of The Guilty Can't Say Goodbye, you can easily get it through Amazon. But also, if you're in Cascais or Lisbon, you can also head into a bookstore there and find it there. Indie Bookstore in the Citadel in Cascais, or Salted Books in Lisbon, or Rosebud Bookshop in Porto is also stocking it,
Okay.
but sometimes they might run out. So then Amazon might be your best bet.
Brilliant. We'll put some links in the show notes that people can follow you, get in touch, and follow your work. Mariam, the final question, and a question that we ask all of our guests. Portugal, the simple life. Why?
Because the simple life is the rich life. Portugal is this country that has this understated humbleness to it, to its character. And I think that really is what makes it so rich to live here. It is that pleasure of simplicity. And I think that Portugal, the simple life, for another reason as well. I think that in each country I've lived in, I've always been on the search for this elusive work-life balance that we all aim for, strive for. But Portugal, the simple life, taught me that actually what I am looking for is a work-life harmony. And what I mean by that is that different parts of your life should not be competing with each other for your attention. You should have a work-life harmony where your work complements your life and your life complements your work. And that's why Portugal, the simple life, has helped me to achieve that work-life harmony where I'm living here, I'm walking the cobblestone streets of Cascais, I'm walking through the jacaranda lined, squares in Lisbon, smelling the, fresh smell of grilled sardines in the air in June. And I'm writing about it. I'm writing about it as well. So it's the work-life harmony where art is inspiring life and life is inspiring art. I don't know what happens first, but it's a nice sort of,
Yeah.
going on there. And I think that for me is why Portugal, the simple life is worth living. Like, go achieve your own work-life harmony and see what you find.
Beautiful. Well said. Thank you so much. Mariam, I feel like we could talk for much longer, but thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Dylan.
And I'm going to let you call it.
And it's a wrap.
So thank you once again to our guest, and thank you to all of you for listening. Please subscribe, share with your friends, give us a thumbs up, and please leave a comment or a review. We always love to hear from you. Don't forget, Portugal the Simple Life also has a magazine, so download it. It's for free. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode, and as we say in Portugal, sejas bem-vindo. Welcome to the Simple Life.